Well, I got my new Kremlin air-assisted airless MVX 60 HVLP gun. It's actually used with a high pressure pump. The gun is good for about 870 pounds of fluid pressure. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you've seen I've been using a Graco G15 and a Binks AA 1500. And I'm actually going to take the Binks AA 1500 and put that on a pump that I was using previously, so I actually have a spare in case one of my two pumps goes down, or I might actually use it for like primers and colored lacquers. So anyways, this is the first brand new piece of Kremlin equipment I've ever owned of this caliber. I've got a Kremlin M21 HVLP on a pressure cup, but I barely use that. I use more and more of the air-assisted airless just because of the performance it puts out. But anyways, looks to be that, if I can get this open here, looks like it came with a 14134 tip. This tip, I believe the orifice size is actually 16 thousandths. Kremlin rates their tips differently than Graco and Binks, but I remember looking at the chart, a 14 is actually a 16 thousandths and a 12 is actually a 15 thousandths. So this should work really good for spraying pre-cat lacquers. So hopefully I'll have good luck with that. And it looks like I got a VX14 air cap. That's like the top line air cap for a Kremlin gun. So oh yeah, nice and shiny. So this gun typically resales for about between $800 and $900, and I got a deal on this online. But I'm very familiar with this gun. It's a great gun, so it's actually nice that I actually can own one myself. So anyways, I'm going to put the air cap on and set the tip in it, and then I need to change a fitting and a hose on my current pump. This fitting right here is actually a JIC fitting. It's a metric fitting versus what I have on there right now is a 1/4 inch SAE fitting. So I need to change the fitting on the pump, and then I've got a new hose that'll accept this fitting. So alright, I'll get that set up. Okay, this is the pump that I got, and as you can see, I've got a lot of hose here. It's 50 feet actually, and here is the gun. It's a Binks AA 1500. It's a great gun, but I'm actually going to take this hose setup, this bundled hose setup, the air hose and fluid hose, and put it back on a different pump. It's actually a Hero 14:1 pump. The Hero 14:1 is the exact same thing as the Graco Monarch 14:1. So I got to replace the hose and the air hose, and I'm probably going to strip the air hose from this one. I've got a different air hose I can use to replace this red one to go with the yellow hose. The yellow hose is the fluid, the red is the air. So I've got a different hose I want to use for the air with this bundle. So I want to use this nice red flexible hose with the new fluid hose, which I'll show you next. Okay, I got a couple different fluid hoses here. I was digging around in my spare parts and I did find this one. This one is actually a JIC hose. Can't see it real well, but right there you can see it. It's kind of cone or funnel shaped on the inside, and that meets with the corresponding fitting on the gun, which is flared out on the outside. This is a good flexible hose. I think it's made by Safety Flex. I'm not sure who makes that. I liked it. It's got the fact it's got the spring guards on it. You can't bend it too much. This is a 3/16 in diameter versus the yellow hose I just showed before is an 1/8 inch. The problem I've got is with that particular pump, it's a 10:1 pump, that Kremlin, and what happens is with 50 feet of hose and a 15 thousandths tip, it seems that the gun is starved. I have to give the pump more air pressure to build up more fluid pressure at a higher atomization rate than I'm used to using. So talking with my Kremlin parts rep, he had suggested going to a 3/16. So lo and behold, I did find this one, like I said, in my spare parts, but I did have him send me out another one just in case, and this one is probably a little bit thinner. It seems like it's a little bit stiffer, but this one's got stainless steel ends, versus this one's just got carbon steel. Now, I'm not using a true post-catalyzed material where the acid catalyst is really corrosive, but this is still stainless steel, and everything else in that pump is stainless steel, so I think I'm going to go with this one here, and I think this one should work out just fine. So again, this is also 3/16 in diameter versus an 1/8 like the yellow. So essentially these two hoses are the same, but this one, it seems to be a little bit more flexible, but I took it unwound a little bit before, and it does definitely seem to be a little bit more coily, so I think I'm going to stick with this one here. I'm very familiar with this brand. This brand is Europower. They're made in Europe someplace, but I used to work at a company where we use these quite a bit, and they're definitely more flexible than the traditional 1/4-inch contractor hoses for sure. So, because this essentially is just a high-pressure hydraulic hose, but it's got stainless steel fittings, so it can hold up to corrosive chemicals. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to separate the air hose from the yellow fluid hose, and I will be taping that up with this here. And then I'm also, to protect the hoses this time, I'm going to be putting a plastic sleeve over it. I found some stuff on a roll. It's about 1.5 inches or 2 inches wide, and they call it hose protector, and I found it through a supplier online. I got a lifetime supply of it, but it'll keep the hoses nice and clean. So okay, here's one last thing I wanted to show you, talking the difference between the fittings. This end here is a JIC5, which is a German fitting, and it's a number 5. And all that stands for is a certain pitch and diameter and style. As you can see, it's like a cone shape here. This cone shape will actually, like I showed you before in the other hose, will match with that cone shape. So it's basically, they're both the same bevel and same angle, so it's a nice tight friction fit. This other end is actually a standard SAE 1/4 inch, and this is what you typically find on everything that's made in America or that has American made fittings. The current fitting I have in the pump and the current hose and gun I'm using on the Kremlin pump uses this style, but I need to replace the fitting on the pump with this one so I can hook up this new hose, which will fit on the gun without any adapters and will fit on this end. So that all has to be done in preparation for mounting the new gun. Okay, I've got the old fitting out, and here's the new one. What I've done is I've taken some time to wrap the thread with teflon tape. I've never had trouble with Teflon causing a problem with the finish. If you question it, you might want to test it, but Teflon is a pretty universal material, so I've had really good luck with it, so I continue to use it. Just kind of, it's like an extra insurance policy to make sure you don't have any leaks, especially at like a medium pressure. This pump is capable of putting out about 1,000 pounds, so I just take the extra precaution and put a little bit of Teflon tape around it. Not much, just a few rounds. It's already a pretty snug fit to begin with, so I'm just going to take this and turn this in good and tight. A little bit more. There we go. So now I'm going to pair the two hoses up, and all I did before I did this was I took the time to flush out the pump with just a little bit of lacquer thinner. That's what I use for flushing out my pumps, and just ran clean solvent through it, and then that way the hose that I took off has clean solvent in it, and then before I put the material back in the pump, I will run solvent through the new hose and fittings in the gun to make sure it's all get all the machining oils and stuff flushed out of it, because if you don't do that, you could have some issues where the machining oil that you use for machining the hard stainless steel and stuff could interfere with your finish. So, okay, so what I have done here is I took some of this, it's like a spiral wrap. You can buy it at the hardware store and usually used to tie cables and hoses and stuff together. That kind of comes up all twisted, and you kind of have to unravel it, and then you start it around a small wire, wrap it around a few times, and you can wrap other ones together with it. So that's what I've done here, basically to keep the hoses from slipping past each other up by the gun. And then everywhere else along the line, I'll use some yellow electrical tape. I always use something different just to identify it. So. Usually 2 or 3 rounds is great plenty. And hopefully now by me putting a hose protector around the hoses here that this tape won't come undone after a while. Okay. I'm just going to let the hose and the gun slide down to the bottom here just so it's not touching the floor. And once I get to the end here, I'm not going to tape it up to the very end. I want to be able to separate these hoses a little bit because the fluid output is a little bit of a distance away from the air outlet, so I don't want to tie them too tight together. Once I get this wrapped up, we'll put the plastic sleeve over it. And see once what we got. Okay, here's the plastic tubing. It's 2 inches in width, and that's just enough. It's actually on the big side by the time you add the thickness of the hose by the width. It'll still be a little bit loose, but I knew 1.5 inches was going to be too narrow, or it's going to be tight, so I got 2 inches. So the key now is to feed these 2 hoses into this sleeve. It should go pretty well as planned. At least one could hope. Okay. Now the trick is to cut this without cutting the hose. There we go. That's the way we do it. Now, take this. Okay, so this is going to go to the pump. Take that through a little bit. Okay, we are ready to attach the gun to the pump.